Hey guys, and welcome back to Time Under Tension. I'm here with co-host Dee Davis this week, and we are going into part two of the second part of our Mind, Body, Spirit series. So this week, going in depth a little bit more on the body and some tangible ways to use the body to influence those other factors.
Yeah.
So last week we talked a lot just generally as like an overview to the mind body connection. And you were saying that you like to lead with the mind mostly and uproot some of those like limiting beliefs and get to like the root thought or belief that's driving the behavior. And I was saying like, hey, but if your physiological bases aren't covered, if you're, not nourishing your body, not sleeping, all of these things, it's going to be really hard, that much harder for you to even get into your mind and break those thoughts down in a productive way. I feel like we kind of came to a agreement there that both are equally important, and there's just different ways for kind of accessing that triad through different angles.
Yeah, I think what we've talked about this week, that could be a really cool way to bring those two ideas into harmony is that it's just a balance. You just have to have balance with that. And the balance is, am I taking care of myself physiologically? And am I also being very mindful of my thoughts and my beliefs and what's showing up emotionally? It's almost like this stepping outside of self is actually this ability to look at both things and be able to identify and address where there may be, okay, maybe I need to sleep more here, but my nourishment, the way I'm training, my recovery is good. Awesome. Let me just focus on sleep. But my mind, I'm finding myself quick to anger. I'm finding myself not being able to process my emotions. I feel super out of control of my life, or I'm having a lot of apathy, despair, depression, things like that. Then, okay, the balance for that individual is a lot more mental than physical. But being able to address both with a healthy balance specific to the person, I think could be a cool way to start integrating the harmonious relationship between the two.
Definitely. And you're right. I think that balance it is super individual. And I think that's one of the most important things to consider here is I wish there was a script. I wish there was a step one, start with sleep, step two, you know, uproot your childhood trauma. But really, it's just it's a big step, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, step one, sleep. Step two, trauma.
But there's not. And I also think depending on what's going on in your life, which I think is just God driven as to what it is that you're dealing with right now and need to be dealing with, you're going to be facing different aspects of this. So for myself, like I was really killing myself physically for a very long time with bodybuilding and pushing myself to the limits. And I had like little injuries here and there and, maybe some digestive issues, but overall, it wasn't a big concern for me. A lot of my battle was more around anxiety, and I started to address that more. And now I'm in this phase where I feel like my anxiety's in a much better spot. I have a lot more tools to use now, and I can step outside of it and kind of recognize what triggers me and what things I need to do to ground. But what I'm coming up against now is like physical injuries. And that is a sign that, oh, okay, there's something else going on. That is just like anxiety. It's like the anxiety was telling me, hey, you're reacting to something. So we either need to look at the stimulus that's driving the reaction or look at your response and maybe change the story in between. It's kind of the same thing with the injury. It's like, all right, I have this injury. Let's backtrack to what could have caused it. And then let's figure out what part of the process that's contributing to this needs to change. Does it mean adding more recovery? Or does it mean subtracting physical activity? Or does it mean changing what I'm doing? And so I feel like all of them kind of work together, but they work in different seasons just based on really what's going on in your life.
Yeah, I think this could be a really cool way to insert polyvagal theory in here, if you don't mind me doing that with you. So, polyvagal theory, essentially, the main point or the main premise of it is that there's afferent and efferent. So what signals are being sent from the brain to the body is efferent, and afferent is up from the body to the head. And how we live our lives is so top down, but only 20% of that signaling happens in this direction from top to bottom. Really, what's happening, just like you mentioned with anxiety, now that you're mentioning from an injury standpoint, is the body is informing you. It's giving you communication of, hey, I don't feel right in this environment, or this hurts, don't do this. The body is sending 80% of our ability to grasp what's truly happening within is coming from the bottom up. And so in that place of focusing so much on doing more or needing status or power or success by definition of money and things of those kinds, it's super in your mind trying to be logical and very streamlined in your focus, where not you specifically, but the way that the world kind of is right now in our culture is super top down, and there's trying to force what we think will be the solution or think will make us happy or think will fulfill us or calm us down or whatever. We're taking external information of the mind and trying to give that to the body when it needs to be the other way around. We need to hear what our body's telling us and take the next right step from there majority of the time. Again, you can find that balance between the two. Like there are times where you can calm the body down in the anxious state with your breath, knowing mentally that you're safe. Like that's a perfect example. But most of the time, even before you can get to that place, you have to hear what it has to say first before you can go about making any sort of rational conclusion.
Totally. So I have an example of this. So I have a client who came to me very, very fearful of carbs. Any grains, I don't know, my body just doesn't handle it. I just think keto is probably the best thing for me. And we did keto for a long time. I'm not opposed to that, but I do think it's something that you need to cycle. And eventually I told her, from both a physical and a psychological standpoint, we need to run through a phase where you're eating carbs. We need to see, how does your body actually feel? You have some issues around your hormones and some inflammation in your body. Let's see what it's like to get more diversity of nutrients using, plant-based things. Let's ease into this, but let's really incorporate some carbs and create more of a balanced diet. And then you're going to know how you feel on it. So she was super fearful. She did it. I was super proud. And we spent probably 8 to 10 weeks on a very balanced diet. And she came to me again about 3 weeks ago and was like, hey, I really want to go back keto. Like, I'm open to cycling, but I just have a feeling it's what I need. And I'm like, that is different language. I believe that. I believe that. There's not fear behind that. There's like a deeper knowing. And we switched back to keto and like hormones regulated, like more than ever, more than even when she was on keto before. So I feel like we just followed exactly what needed to happen here. And she's feeling great and she's feeling strong and her weight is dropping like quickly and it's just amazing. And to me, that was like she developed that bottom up awareness. Like we all have the knowledge that all of those signals are coming up, but we like cut our heads off and we just don't even think about what our body's telling us, or we get really irritated as if it's an inconvenience. Like me, oh my gosh, why does my hip hurt so bad? This is so frustrating. I just want to go train and do jujitsu and I don't want to deal with this. And it's like, hey, like your body is telling you something really useful. It's telling you you're on the verge of like an actual injury that's going to actually probably put you, in the hospital. So see it as valuable and start to use. I think I like to use physical things because they're really tangible, like a diet or a style of training. Implement it and commit to it for a certain amount of time, like 3 weeks, and then just monitor. How is your body feeling? What have you noticed? What's changed? Has performance improved? How are your joints feeling? You got to be monitoring because that's how you're developing that bottom up awareness. And then over time, I think can become less, bullet point where you're like, okay, recovery, how's my body feeling? How's it? It's like you just start to know, this feels really good. Or today I know I need to do this. Or, I'm really craving this right now. I know my body needs this. And it can become a lot more conversational.
Yeah, no, I love that. The thing that came to my mind, and I wasn't really thinking this is the direction that this podcast was going to go today, to be honest, but it kind of seems like that's where it's headed is fear. I think is such a great point to bring up here because making change should be something that's sparked by curiosity and exploration and imagination and like, oh, what could this new diet do for me? Or like, what could getting more sleep actually allow me to feel? But I heard it in the podcast this morning. It was Lewis Howes and Jay Shetty. And he talks about when you don't do the thing you know you should do, there's a fear that you have to uncover there. There's something that you haven't processed. There's some sort of trauma. Whether it's fear of failure, fear of success, or fear of judgment. One of those three is present. And when I think about fear of carbs, or I think about myself, like right now, I have my last meal around 9. And I really think that there's something to eating late at 9 when we go to bed at 9:30 or 10 that's causing this lack of REM sleep that's affecting my overall energy in the day. And another thing that I just learned is that if you breathe out of your mouth at night, your carbon dioxide levels, the pressure of the outside and atmosphere and your internal atmosphere, you're actually causing so much more fatigue for your body because you're constantly having to realign that pressure. Whereas if you're breathing in through your nose, you're breathing much slower, you're breathing a little bit lighter, not as deep. It's easier for the body to maintain that pressure system and allows you to relax more in your sleep. So, two big things that I do that could be affecting my energy levels the next day. I have not made the change at night. And that's something I have to not get frustrated with myself about or get mad at myself about or think that it's not the right thing for me. It's addressing like, okay, what's there? There's something there. My body's telling me, hey, like you're not sleeping as well as you need to be for having 3 jobs right now. Like you got exos, you got things that you're doing with teams for collegiate athletes, you have your personal athletes, like you're doing so much and your energy expenditure needs to be like really, really tight knit and focused for you right now. But I have a history of disordered eating, and having that meal at night makes me feel safe and that I won't have a binge at night because I eat close to bed, I'm full, all right, good, I'm ready to go. So there's something in there for me still that I haven't fully processed enough to be like, I'm super chill with waking up 5:30 like we do, training for the hour 15, and eating right away. Get eating started, 8 a.m., 10, 1, 4, 7, bed. Like I have it. I know. I feel like that's something I need to do. But there's a fear there that I need to address, and I need to address it with curiosity and compassion and understand my body's trying to tell me something. And also then understand that there's some sort of trauma stored in my body still that I need to start really working through. Like, what do I fear really? What's the fear? And am I in a different place now? Like, can I try it and see what happens? And like, use my breathing tools or use my other yoga nidra tools to get calm before bed and just see what happens. It's like that fear of like, I don't know is keeping me from actually doing the thing. So I kind of wanted to throw that in there because I just think it's tying in our mind and our body and how our body's trying to tell us something, but we meet resistance in our mind because of fear. That once we remove fear and just try to love ourselves and hear our bodies for what it needs, then trusting that and moving forward, you'll actually be able to see yourself grow like so much faster and be able to implement these changes a lot quicker.
That is really powerful, and I appreciate you sharing that. I know it's not easy to share something when you're like in the middle of it, but I think it's a good example because it points all of us to like reflect on, all right, what's an area of something that I know I need to be doing right now and I'm just not. And I think a lot of those things often are pretty physical, um, and maybe not. I think there's also mental things as well, but I think it shows that tie between the two and how they are often related. And I think that as a culture, we have devalued the wisdom of the body.
Yes.
And it's such a shame. It really is because I think our bodies have so much they can tell us, but it's difficult to, we want to put it into words at times. And everyone around us is so focused on educating on the body. And I've struggled with this balance myself of like wanting to learn like the best diets for this or like what is the best schedule for eating. And I think it's helpful to go out and learn things from people who have done research in this field and worked with thousands of people and examine like who are the healthiest people in the world and what are they doing, because success leaves clues. Like there's a reason that people like thrive in certain areas or with certain ways of eating, just as an example. But it has to be then combined with that feedback from yourself and self-reflection, because I see so often like on the other hand a client who like 100% wants to go keto only and it's like not working for their body at all, and they like refuse to listen, and it's like, dude, your hair's falling out, like you feel horrible, like you're losing muscle pretty like apparently, so many things are telling you not to do this, and you're just so fearful of whatever it is, the loss of control, the whatever the deeper fear is. And I think what you're saying is like that's what you need to be facing. Stop focusing so much on just the behavior. And that's where I do think that the mind is such an important part of this, because if you're not, you can change the behavior, but at some point if you reach your threshold of stress
Yeah.
and you still have an underlying belief or fear that's driving you, you will go back to that behavior.
Yeah. And just like we watched in that video together, we have patterns that are developed from 0 to 7. And those patterns or programs are essentially how we've come to understand the world and what happens when this happens or what happens when that happens. And we see our parents, they're our literal source of life in that period of time. So whatever our parents are choosing to emphasize are going to have very defined programs in our subconscious mind. And if you're able to understand that your conscious mind is going to take from the subconscious programs, if you're not intentional about being conscious, then you're going to continue to repeat the same patterns and programs that keep you stuck or keep you unfulfilled or whatever. The consciousness aspect of our life is so significant to being able to switch from living a life of survival mode, to living a life of creation and feeling this sense of freedom and being able to disrupt the pattern and actually change the pattern through neuroplasticity. Like you can change your brain, literally, there's science. And the way that I feel like this happens is by hearing what your body needs and being able to take new information from the body to understand a program in your subconscious mind that you want to change, or you can understand what's happened to you that you can then release the resistance of and know that you have the power to then go into your life and change the narrative, change the story, be able to start creating and changing people's lives because you're changing your own inner world. You're showing other people it's possible to create change. In all of that, that to be said, I guess, our bodies are this temple, and this can kind of lead us into the spirit conversation later on, but inside of us is, we are just made of energy. Like we respond to environments, we respond to energetic fields. That's like connection to other people or a stimulus or whatever. That if we're not super intentional about learning our inner world and our responses, then we can't ever uproot the patterns that don't serve our progress in the future. And we see progress as something to see in everyone else. Like I agree with you totally. Success leaves clues and or patterns, right? Like this world is about pattern recognition. I also think every single thing that is of this world came from someone's imagination. And if you want to build your own life and stay in your own lane, learning to take little nuggets from other people, as well as hearing what your body has to say, creating your story, and then going out and giving the world a whole nother story or a whole nother set of new ideas to build off of, is going to dramatically change your ability to see how much of a co-creator you actually are. You don't need to be living to follow someone else's footsteps. Like those people are sharing all of this wisdom that they've gathered from their walk. And that's exactly what we can do if we connect our conscious brain to our bodies and actually be able to hear the wisdom that we hold internally.
100%. I think one of the phrases that has resonated most with me in my life is like, take what you need and be on your way. It's a lyric from a song, but I love that idea because I think you can learn from different teachers throughout your life, and you don't have to emulate those teachers forever. Like you have this unique knowledge that if you guys are interested in a book about this, there's a book called Mastery where he talks about how we create this unique knowledge by combining all of the things we've learned in all these different areas of our life, because we have a very unique experience that we've learned from different teachers. And so we can bring this totally unique perspective if we continue pursuing our path and not get too caught up in following a mentor. Like follow them for a certain amount of time and take what you need, but don't stop questioning and know when you need to branch off. And an example of this is like, I studied intuitive eating and I got certified as an intuitive eating counselor. And I love it. I think it's an amazing program. But I will say that I think it can be super helpful for people to have a plan and learn what it feels like to be consistent on a plan and then develop the intuition from there. So that's not exactly in line with what they would say in the course, but I've seen it work for some people. And so I feel like I've been able to combine these two knowledges to help people move towards that. But if they just want to stay with me forever and be on a plan forever, they're never going to learn that interoception that's going to allow them to start making decisions independently. So as a coach, my job is like, okay, you're going on vacation. Awesome. You're not on a plan. Like this is your time to practice what you've been learning. And that's the goal, is like to get people moving towards independence. So same with ourselves. We can learn from different people and take what we need, but we need to always come back to ourselves and say, okay, what is my spirit saying? Like what piece of this contains truth? And maybe there's another direction I need to go to pick up the next piece of truth. But it's this ongoing process where you have to stay centered in, like, your true teacher is God and the spirit within you. It's not just following someone else's footsteps, step per step.
Do you want to talk about maybe some practical application, I guess, tools that you've learned from connecting your mind and body, where your mind's not making all the decisions, but there's something you do to make sure you hear your body. Maybe we can give people who are listening, like, okay, you know, clearly our body is this temple that holds our spirit. That's our direct connection to God and all of this wisdom, everything that we need. So if we're cutting off our neck and we have no access to the body, we're just trying to tell our bodies what to do. Clearly, we're going to be living completely out of alignment, fatigue, unfulfillment, probably a lot of anger and frustration, no love. Can we give them some applicable tools? Because I think both of us are just so different in how we got to the place of being able to, even the practice of stepping outside, like that's something that takes a lot of mindfulness and practice to realize you're going into a anxious situation for you, or an anxiety attack, or for me this like intense anger. I feel like both of us have different practices we could talk about.
Definitely. So from a, I would say, I almost said purely body, but I think that that undermines everything we've been talking about. Nothing is purely body, but from a using the body as the doorway approach, I think one great thing to do when it comes to nutrition is monitoring your digestion, because your digestion is the most uh, closely related downstream effect or experience from what you eat. Now, everything else changes too. Like your brain will change based on how you eat, like your actual like tissues in your body will change. But it's really hard to tell that. And it's not as quick. So looking at like, okay, I'm gonna eat and then I'm gonna slow down and then I'm gonna check in with myself like 30 minutes later and say, like, how do I feel? Like, do I feel bloated? Do I feel comfortable? Am I starting to get hungry again? Am I just so uncomfortably full? Do I feel tired? Start to notice how you're feeling after you eat. I think that for me was a huge doorway to connecting with what my body was telling me and getting outside of my head when I was making decisions around what I wanted to eat. So it wasn't like well, how many calories are in this? And when was the last time I ate? It was more like, hey, how's your digestion right now? And it's like, oh, I'm actually still full. So that's actually the truth. Or I'm just so starving right now. It's actually difficult for me to make a decision because I've hit that point. And then it's like, oh, okay, I went too long without eating. So you can gather so much information with that and start this dialogue between your body and mind where you're comfortably moving between the two and directing that communication. And it isn't like you're stuck in your head trying to figure out what to do for this, this body thing that we have. And you're not just in your body, uncomfortable with all of the feelings and not really sure how to put thought to it. It's like streamlining the dialogue between.
That's great.
I
I
think
can give
one, yeah, no, go ahead.
I can just do one for the mind. I know we talked about breath work before this call, but seriously focusing on your breathing. It is the coolest journey I've been on in a while of understanding the power of the breath, and a simple practice you can do to just get yourself back into a place of rational thinking. If you're just really out of sorts or you're just not really sure what to do next, it's like, let's just get still and connect to the body. Breathe in for 4 and out for 8, or breathe in for 5 and out for 5. Either way, being very breath aware, lay down, sit, be aware of your breath. Is it short and in your chest? Is it slow and in your belly? Just exist for a second before you start doing the practice. Just sit down, lay down, be aware of your breathing, you know, start paying attention to your breathing everywhere you go. Start paying attention to your breathing at work. Just a minute or two. What's my breathing like right now? If it's shortened in the chest, then you're stressed, you're anxious. That's a sign of stressful. Stress is your SNS, your sympathetic nervous system is activated. If you're slow breathing, if it's down on the belly, you're regulated. You're in a place of your parasympathetic is activated, rest and digest. The next thing would be conscious breathing. So being able to actively perform a practice of the breath, whether that's some sort of regulating breath, which is that 5 in, 5 out, in through the nose, out through the mouth, in through the nose, one continuous breath, 5 minutes. Or you can do a regulating from a down regulation standpoint, breathe in for 4 and then multiply that by 2. you have 8 on the way out. You're in through your nose, you're out through your mouth. That will activate your rest and digest. The reason I bring up down regulation is because most of us are super upregulated constantly, super, super stressed. If you are someone who feels like you have really low energy and it's in the morning, then have a little bit more of a quick breath, almost like a forced hyperventilation of 2 in and 2 out. Real quick, 2-3 minutes, and you'll feel your whole energy in your body start to upregulate. So just thinking about how you can manipulate the breath to really start to match what you want to feel in the body. And then after that, just especially when you downregulate, just be aware of what you're feeling. Just feel what it feels like in your left foot, in your right foot, in your stomach, in your back, in your neck, in your shoulders. Just be very conscious of the body around conscious breathing.
Okay, would you take us through one of the down regulating ones and then one of the up regulating ones so we can kind of feel the difference?
Yeah, you want to do it right now? You want to upregulate at 5 p.m.?
Why not?
Okay. All right. So upregulating, what you're gonna do is you're gonna have in through the breath, in for 2, out for 1. So you're like, yep. Okay. So we're gonna do that. I'll time us. We'll do it
Guys,
for a
you better
minute.
do this with me. I do not want to do this alone.
We're gonna do it for 1 minute. That's a long time. So if you start to get lightheaded, this is for everybody. You can
If
get
you're
lightheaded.
driving, do
Do
not.
not do it. Yeah. So sit or lay down. I usually prefer to lay down. Let's go 30 seconds, Liv here. Okay.
Okay.
All right, are you ready? In for 2 through the nose, out for 1. And go. You feel it? Ten seconds. Can relax. How do you feel? Can you feel the
Good.
energy? You're starting to sweat a little bit?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'm woo. Down regulate. Hot. All right. Down regulating. You're way more focused on your exhale. You want your inhale to be in through the belly, in through the chest, in through the nose, out through the mouth. Okay. So you really want to emphasize your exhale being twice as long as your inhale. Okay. So if I breathe in for 4, I'm going to breathe in nice, slow, and controlled, in through the belly, into the chest, and then out through the mouth with a almost like you're drinking through a straw. Out for 8. So you'll be in this position. Really notice it's you have to control the exhale. So the 8 is nice and slow. Okay. We'll do the same thing. Let's do this one for 2 minutes. Now that we're upregulated, this should be around 4 to 5 breaths a minute. So you're really, really slowing it down, slowing down the breath, getting that balance of CO2 to match a little bit more of the atmospheric pressure. Okay. In for 4, I'll count you out for 8. Ready? In and out. In for 4, 3, 4, and out. And in for 4, and out for 8. 7, 8. In for 4, 4 and out. 5, 6, 7, 8. In 3, 4. Out. 6, 7, 8. In out, in, out, in, out, in, 3, 4, out, 5, 6, 7, 8. Relax. How do you feel?
Super calm. Super calm.
It's really cool. It's super powerful. And you, again, 8 is a long time, so that I'm really impressed, to be honest with you. If you guys are feeling like that's too difficult, just making your exhale longer than your inhale and keeping it one continuous breath is going to calm you down and get you back into that parasympathetic nervous system.
Yeah, I think the first time I had insight into this was I had two panic attacks. I had two panic attacks in my life, and neither time did I know I was anxious at all. It wasn't like I was feeling stressed and then it was building. It was like it hit me like a wall, and I just started, I could not breathe at all. And I was, and no matter what I did, I could not catch my breath. And it was like, I don't think I really figured out the full cycle until now, thinking about it. But my body was so stressed that I couldn't breathe. And so, and my mind was so stressed that I couldn't breathe. There was really no differentiation between the two. And I see this as like, look at how your breath can be the way to achieve that calmness. It's like going in from the other direction. When I was so anxious at the peak of anxiety, I lost my breath. And that was then the most terrifying thing ever. Like, I've been through different kind of pain in my life, but nothing has ever been worse than not feeling like I could breathe. It is absolutely terrifying. And so I think our breath is like such a gift, and it's such a cool and easy way, especially for people like me. Like, I struggle with meditation sometimes because getting my mind to slow down can be difficult. And sometimes it feels like I'm trying to force thoughts out of my head. But breathing, when you're breathing like that, it's the only thing you can focus on, really. So it so naturally becomes a form of meditation. And I think that's really powerful. On top of it, literally changing the way that you are internally. Like, most of the patients we had in the hospital, like any of them coming in with something acute that was like pretty wrong, one of the first things, the first vital sign that's disrupted is your rate of breathing. And it's the one that we most often overlook because no one's going to sit there with a timer and count how many times someone is breathing. We usually make it up. Like, as nurses, I'll tell you, we'll sit there and be like, 12 breaths a minute and write it down because we don't feel like we have time. But it's the first indicator that something's off is how fast someone is breathing. And I think that is such a testament to how powerful it is to use this.
Yeah, that was super cool. Thanks for letting me lead that. I think
Yeah.
the biggest takeaway is just how impactful it is on not only immune health, but anxiety, like overall HRV. I mean, there's so many actual physiology benefits to breath work, not just connecting the mind and body as well. So it's
Definitely.
super powerful, something to definitely consider and look into.
Yeah. Well, I think this was a cool way to kind of wrap up that portion of the series talking about body. There's a lot of different ways to tap into the body. We've talked about it from different perspectives. And again, the body and mind are working together. So separating the two is almost not what we're trying to do. We're trying to show that they are super intertwined, but I think that there's ways you can leverage both to help create balance in the other. And next week, we're going to start diving into spirit. And that's going to be a cool way to really tie it all together and show that really all of these things are working together, but that there's something even deeper to both of these that I think really allows us to be that one being that's moving between the three with a sense of like wisdom and discernment above just living out of the body, above just living out of the mind or emotion. It's living above it all and being able to know what you need.
Totally. I love the way that that ended. I also think just a little nugget for next time is we identify with our bodies. We identify as our bodies. We identify as our achievements when really we are who we are. That's it, and that's the spirit. We are energy and we are love. And I think it'll be really cool to bring in the breath and how that's a very clear indicator of God's power over us. Like he absolutely gives us breath, but we also have this very cool aspect of agency where we get to control our breath as well and create from that place. So there's this really cool union that happens in the breath when you're living out of your spirit, being able to understand that we are all made of this potential energy that we get to create and go make kinetic in some way that's activated through service.
I love that. This week, guys, try using those breathing techniques. Like depending on what you need. We went through the upregulation again, maybe not at 5 p.m., but whenever you need it.
Right. I'm ready to go. So
Or down regulation, which I think is what a lot of us need. So try that this week. And as far as, methods for connecting with the body in other ways, like maybe start with digestion. If that's not something you've ever kept an eye on before, really think about how the things that you're taking into your body are affecting the way that your body feels within the next 1 to 2 hours, and really setting even a timer in your phone, like an hour after you eat, and just saying, how do I feel? And timer your phone 2 hours after you eat. How do you feel? And just do that for a few days, and you'll learn so much about your body and really start to combine probably all the knowledge that you've heard with that deep internal wisdom and start to figure out what the in between looks like for you. Awesome. Well, thank you guys for watching and listening. Please remember to like, subscribe, comment, and share. And if you ever have any questions, you can always reach out to us. Our emails are in the description below. Next week, we'll be attacking part number 3, spirit. So stay tuned, and we will see you next week on Time Under Tension.